Ever get that feeling? Drowning in information, trying to find, the stuff that really matters.
Oh, yeah. Information overload for sure.
And that's why we do these deep dives. It's like, let's take one thing. We zero in, right? What are the key ideas and how can we actually use them? No overwhelm. Today we're diving into chapter 39, Humility Built for God, BFG movement, Christian edition of the Tao Te Ching.
And this chapter is really interesting because right off the bat, they say, look, this is a fresh way to express the gospel. It's like they're saying we're going to restore the truth. They're taking those familiar concepts and kind of twisting them a little, giving them a new spin.
It's a fresh perspective for sure. So for this deep dive, we're really going to unpack how this chapter views humility. How does it connect to greatness? Deeper sense of, spirituality. They start with this really powerful statement. In the beginning, the heavens and earth attained oneness. Why is that opening so important?
Okay, so what they're doing is saying that this oneness, which is all about God, is the source of everything good in creation. It's like, imagine the roots of a tree, right? One root system feeding the whole thing. So they say, this oneness. It's where we get clarity in the sky, the stillness of the earth, even the divinity of the spirit. Think about it. The abundance of the valley, life itself, even rulers' authority. Everything's in harmony because it all comes from this oneness in God.
And then, boom, they flip it, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you don't have this oneness? Hailstorms, earthquakes. It's like the spirit vanishes, valleys are barren.
Total opposite.
Steve talked about extinction and like leaders failing, all because of this lack of oneness.
Exactly. They're using these like almost apocalyptic examples to show just how essential this divine oneness is for everything, for life, for order. And they're not just making this up. These ideas connect to so many foundational Christian texts.
Oh, for sure.
Like Exodus, Psalms, Genesis, Ecclesiastes even. They all speak to God's role as creator and also the sustainer of everything. Like remember Genesis 1.31, God sees creation and says, it's very good. That's that initial oneness, that harmony.
So anything good, anything that lasts, it all comes from this unity found in God. It's like the ultimate foundation. But then they make this big statement, humility is the root of honor. How do they back that up?
So they use this analogy. They say the high is built upon the foundation of the low. Like, think about it structurally. Anything truly great, anything worthy of honor needs a solid base of humility. And for leaders, they say leaders call themselves alone and unworthy. Not like putting themselves down, but recognizing that their position comes from something bigger. They need to stay humble and low. It's like, a skyscraper. The taller it is, the deeper the foundation has to be.
It's totally the opposite of how we usually think of leadership, right? It's all about project strength, confidence, sometimes even a bit of arrogance. But here they're saying, no. True honor comes from knowing your limits and that you need something beyond yourself. And then they add, seeking praise does not win true praise. What's that about?
It's all about your motivation, right? If you're doing good things just to get applause, any praise will feel empty. According to them, true honor just happens. It comes from being genuinely humble, from focusing on serving others, not yourself. Like they reference Luke 14.10:11. Jesus says, take the lowest seat at the table, then you'll be honored. Humility comes first, then recognition.
Makes sense. So we have oneness as the source, humility as the root of honor. Then they talk about simplicity. Do not adorn yourself with sparkling jade, but be common and dull as the rocks. What's the message there?
They're pushing for authenticity, inner substance over outward appearances, that sparkling jade. It's all the flashy stuff. Wealth, status, trying to impress others, but being common and dull as the rocks. That's about what's inside, being real, not needing external validation. So they value simplicity. Your worth isn't about possessions or how you look.
And that reminds me of how many spiritual traditions warn us about getting too caught up in the material world. This chapter even links it to Jesus and his criticism of the Pharisees, right?
Jesus really went after those religious leaders who were all about outward appearances, fancy clothes, wanting to be seen, all about rituals, but their hearts weren't right. This idea of sparkling jade versus common rocks totally matches Jesus saying inner transformation matters more. It's about your heart, not putting on a show.
So we've got oneness, humility, simplicity. Now they introduced this framework for renewal, which they call the Trinitarian method, or MAP, mindset, aim, and practice. So let's start with the first mindset they say is to embrace the oneness of creation. How does this relate to the oneness we talked about earlier?
It's like taking that idea of oneness and really making it your own. You have to see how everything's connected. You, other people, nature, it's all one under God's will. You have to see the world through that lens and act accordingly, respect everything, be connected. The real world application is to make choices reflecting that view. Your actions have an impact. Be kind, be empathetic. And the scriptures they give, Romans 11.36, John 17.21, they both talk about God being the source, holding everything together, and Jesus wanting his followers to be unified.
The next mindset is humility as the foundation of true greatness. We talked about humility, but how does this change our perspective?
Okay, so this one is about redefining what greatness actually means. Not power or status, but humility. That honesty about needing God, needing others, that's the foundation. It's about servant leadership. Strength comes from serving. So the real-world application is to lead by serving. Put others first. They reference Matthew 23.11-12 and Philippians 2.3-4. Both really push for humility and service in a spiritual context.
Then there's simplicity over materialism. This seems deeper than just, not wanting fancy stuff. It's a shift in values.
For sure. It's saying spiritual wealth matters more. Your relationship with God, with people, those come first, not stuff. Chasing things just distracts you from what's important. So, declutter your life. Spend less. Invest your time in relationships, experiences, not things. They give Matthew 6.19-1 and 1 Timothy 6.6-8. Both warn against focusing on earthly treasures. They highlight contentment and godliness.
The fourth mindset is seek divine approval, not human praise. So many people struggle with that.
It's a constant back and forth, right?
Yeah.
This mindset says, focus on pleasing God, not on getting applause from others. Wanting praise can lead you down the wrong path. The real-world application is to be kind, serve others, don't expect anything back. Ask yourself, are my actions what God wants? The scriptures, Matthew 6.1 and Galatians 1.6, they warn against showing off your righteousness and say to seek God's favor above all else.
The final mindset, the importance of stillness and reflection. Finding quiet in today's world, it's almost radical.
Almost. But they're saying inner quiet, solitude, that's how you connect with the divine. In stillness, you hear God's voice, get clarity. It brings spiritual stability. So set aside time for prayer, meditation. Just be quiet. Psalm 46.10, Mark 1.35, both talk about the power of being still. Even Jesus went to solitary places to pray.
Okay, that's the mindset part of MAP now for aim. How is having an aim different from a mindset?
Well, mindset is how you see things. Aim is where you want to go with it. What's your purpose? The first aim is oneness in God, living in unity with God in everything, striving for harmony in the world, recognizing God's role in it all. The real-world application is to align your actions with God's will. Promote unity. Be a good steward of the earth. Colossians 1.617, John 17.21. They're about God as the creator and Jesus praying for his followers to be one.
Next is humility before honor. It's like taking that humility mindset and putting it into action.
Right. Prioritize humility. Be a servant leader. Don't be selfish. Serve others out of love. Recognize our shared humanity. Think about the example of Jesus, the real-world application. Put others' needs first. Serve without wanting a reward. They're all about humility and service.
Simplicity over worldly desire is the next aim. It's not just thinking it's good, it's aiming to live it.
Absolutely. Make conscious choices. Focus on faith, love, service, not on materialism or wanting approval. Be content with what you have.
Yeah.
Prioritize relationships, spiritual growth, not more stuff. They warn against wanting earthly treasures and against greed.
Seeking true praise is the fourth aim. So intentionally working to please God, not getting caught up in what people think.
Exactly. Let God's will, his character, be your guide, not what other people say, which always changes. The real world application. Check your motivations. Do good because it honors God, not yourself. Matthew 6.1, emphasize being sincere in your faith, putting God first.
And lastly, the importance of stillness and divinity, making that connection with the divine a priority.
Time for stillness in your heart, your mind, so you can hear God's voice, align your life with his purpose. The real-world application. Have regular time for prayer, meditation, quiet contemplation. John 15.4, they talk about being still before God and staying connected to him. He's the source of our strength.
So we've got mindset and aim. Now, the final part of MAP, practice. How does this build on the mindsets and aims?
Okay, so practice is where it gets real. You're putting those mindsets and aims into action consistently. The first practice is oneness with God in creation. Acknowledge God's presence in everything, from nature's beauty to your interactions with people. Live according to God's will. Reflect his love, compassion, justice. The scriptures they give, Colossians 1.1617, Romans 11.36, they remind us God is the creator and everything's connected through him.
Then there's humility and leadership in daily life, putting humility into practice in everything you do.
Right. Serve others, see their needs, their perspectives, recognize that you depend on God. It doesn't matter if you're a leader or just living your life, the real world application. Listen to others, be willing to serve. Don't chase power or recognition. Philippians 2.34, Matthew 23. They're all about putting others first, being a servant.
We also have simplicity in living as a practice, not just thinking about it, actually doing it day after day.
Yeah. Make choices to value spiritual and relational wealth over stuff. Be content. Focus on what matters eternally, your relationship with God, with others, the real-world application. Let go of wanting things. Invest your time in what feeds your soul in relationships, storing up heavenly treasures and being content.
Seeking true praise from God is the next practice, making sure your actions honor God.
Always check your motivations. Why are you doing what you're doing? Or to get approval. The real-world application. Live authentically with integrity. God is watching.
And finally, cultivating stillness and divinity, making that quiet time with God a regular part of your life.
Exactly. Set aside time for prayer, meditation, silence. Strengthen your connection to Him, the real-world application. Use that stillness to get clarity, guidance, a sense of purpose. Being still before God and staying connected to Him, He's the source of our spiritual life.
So that's the MAP framework: mindset, aim, practice, all based on oneness, humility, and simplicity. Then the chapter ends with respond, connecting with shared truths across different spiritual traditions. What's the idea there?
Respond takes the principles we've discussed: oneness, humility, simplicity, seeking divine approval, and stillness. And it says these aren't just for one faith, they're universal. So for each principle, they show similar teachings from different religions: Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism. They even give quotes from the scriptures. It's like they're showing that wisdom and ethics, they're found everywhere.
Like when they talk about sacred unity of all creation, they give verses from Romans, Genesis. But then they also talk about Brahman in Hinduism, interdependence in Buddhism, and verses from the Quran and the Torah. Why do they do that?
The section specifically says how this unites us. The belief in a divine origin, even if it's expressed differently, makes us all see creation as sacred. It creates unity. The real-world application is to live out that understanding. Respect all life. Be responsible for the planet. See ourselves as part of something bigger.
They do the same for all 5 principles, right? With humility, they give verses from Matthew, Proverbs, but also teachings from the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the Quran, and Proverbs again.
Yep, every principle. First, the idea from chapter 39. Then similar teachings from other faiths, an explanation of how it unites us, real-world application, and the specific scriptures they use. So with humility, they show that many traditions see it as the path to wisdom and spiritual growth. And selfless service, that's a common way to express it.
For simplicity, they put Jesus' words about not storing up treasures next to ideas of detachment in Hinduism, contentment in Buddhism, giving to charity in Islam, and warnings about wealth in Judaism.
The common thread there is that it's better to focus on spiritual values. Be content, be grateful, rather than wanting more and more stuff. The real-world application is often to live minimally, to find inner peace.
With seeking divine approval, they compare Jesus' teachings to the Hindu idea of acting without wanting results. The Buddhists focus on good deeds being valuable in themselves, the Islamic principle of being sincere in worship, and the Jewish call to honor God through our actions.
It's all about having the right motivation, focusing on your connection to the divine, not on getting recognition. The application is to do good because it honors God, not for your own benefit.
And lastly, for stillness, they connect Psalm 46.0 with meditation in Hinduism and Buddhism, the Islamic emphasis on remembering Allah, and the Jewish tradition of Shabbat, a time for rest and reflection.
Many traditions see stillness, contemplation, as ways to connect with the divine, to get deeper spiritual insights. So the application is to make time for quiet reflection, to meditate.
So respond shows that these values aren't just for one religion, they're part of a human search for meaning, for ethical living.
Exactly. The chapter ends by saying, recognizing these shared principles helps us grow spiritually. It brings people of different faiths together, and that can lead to a more peaceful world.
So this deep dive into chapter 39, this Christian edition of the Tao Te Ching, really puts humility front and center. It comes from the oneness of God, and it's the basis for true greatness. The chapter encourages us to live simply, to want God's approval, not praise, and to find that stillness that connects us spiritually.
And what's really interesting is how they connect these ideas to other faiths. It makes you think, maybe these values are universal, found in different spiritual paths.
What does that tell us about what makes a meaningful life? No matter your background or beliefs, the human search for purpose and connection, something to keep thinking about.